My next guest is the founding member and director of product development at Headset Sports. Please welcome Peter Papadogiannis. Hey, Peter.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Good to see you,
Uh,
Vince.
Good to see you too. Thank you so much for doing this. Peter, so how has your transition been since this pandemic?
It has been an interesting process on different levels. From a, a work standpoint, things have changed. So just a little bit of background. So I have a company and a system that I created a few years ago, and it's in sport, and it's more so in mental skills training. So our vision is to be able to help athletes who are competitive build a mindset about mental strength and toughness, right? So we built this system that is customizable, and we were really had a lot of momentum helping these young athletes and also teams, and then sports stopped. And we needed to transition, we needed to pivot, and we still want to give back. We're just doing it in a different way. So we're kind of doing what you're doing. We're jumping on to we're extending our podcast. We're going on Instagram. We're doing webinars, and it really comes from an area of support. We're doing all this because we want to be able to help our current users and hopefully our future users, or ones that we onboard during this time, to get through it. And they're challenged, and rightfully so, and so am I. Like, things are not the same from a few months back, and just with my schedule, I get into a rhythm and have this rhythm that I'm so used to, and then it stops, and then I have to be kind of open that things are different, and stay optimistic that things are going to get back. I don't think it's going to get back to being where it was before, but that's change, right? So I got to stay open to change, for myself, my business, my family, my clients. So it is challenging, but I think just having a perspective in moving forward, the one that I mentioned, is helpful to me. It's not without frustration. There are times where it is super frustrating, but it's trying to get back to that mindset and behavior a little bit quicker. So yeah, it's been there. There's been highs, and there's been some times where it's been challenging, but it's just working to kind of be consistent with the work and message that we're trying to move forward with.
I think everybody appears in the same boat in trying to get the balance of work, of social, of quarantine, and I think everyone's trying to find that balance. Because I know at the start, for me at least, it was very difficult.
Yeah, you know what, colleagues, clients, and people who are using our headset system, they're saying the same thing. It's challenging, but it's trying to be able to take on that information and those feelings, and just for us, a big part has been acknowledgement. Like, man, you are upset, you are afraid of what's going to happen in the future, but that's a common theme. So to be able to be one aware, which means you acknowledge it, but also you have to accept it, and then you got to move forward, right? But to do the moving forward piece without being able to acknowledge and accept it, again, I'm not saying blindly accept it. It's just working through it, right? You can do your own reflection work. It's helpful to have someone. There could be a friend, a family member, a mentor. For athletes, it could be a teammate or coach, but it's hard to go through it on your own. So being able to bring in people who you can talk with, get some advice from, give advice to, I think helps narrow the amount of time. And for the mental skills in sport, we always talk about narrowing the amount of time of getting back to where you want to get to, because it will eventually happen. But for athletes and people in sport, they want it to happen quicker. And you need to put some things in place for it to be able to happen quicker. And I think that's helpful, just even from my own standpoint, and just learning from the words that I tell other people. I got to walk it as well. So it's been very interesting.
I completely agree. Peter, in your many roles of mental skills consulting, what are some of your main goals and responsibilities?
The main goals is either through headset or private practice, It really is to equip athletes who are at a high level. I tend to spend more time on those competitive athletes. Generally, it's from 14 and above. I would even go a little bit further and go like 18 and above. But it really is trying to help them understand which mental skills are important for them to work on and then how to work on them. Because for most athletes, one, they don't do mental skills training. Number two, they don't know how to do it. It is a skill. Like, and people have to sharpen that skill. Like, and people just say, and I hear it a little bit more in person, um, in doing the consulting work with athletes, that they know the concepts, right? They'll talk about confidence, they'll talk about resilience. Well, when you ask them how they do it, it's often it is silence. They don't know how, right? And even for people who are a little bit older, they also, for the most part, don't know how. But we're asked to do it over and over again, and that's why people love sport and the mental side, is because you can feel it. And if it is live or on TV or online, you're streaming, like, you can you can really observe it, right? And say, like, that person is feeling, even though you can't go into that person's shoes, but you can see their behavior in regards to sport. So um, it's really equipping people, because you really want people to reach their potential, right? And at least I'll just speak personally. I want people to reach their potential, right? And that's it's really nice to be on a journey with someone when they do. Will they do it always? No. But that's also a fantastic place to be, because you want to develop, right? You and I doing the work that we do, we want to develop, right? And we had this off camera. It was like, you want to get better, right? You want to learn from where you were and you want to get better. And it's not without kind of being reflective and saying, I can do better. People are going to give you feedback, right? You want to be open minded to it. So for me, in where we are now, and we've come back to sport, and when people get to competing again against teams and other individuals, these things are very important.
All the best athletes in the world, Peter. It seems like every top athlete has important mental skills. Like you can just go down the list. You can say Cindy Crosby, Tiger Woods. You can say Michael Jordan.
Yeah, and those that you mentioned, all of them are not without their challenges, right? And a lot of it, like all three, kind of you bring me to a place of, like, physically their bodies broke down, every one of them, right? Michael is, we kind of feel like he's back with the Last Dance, but he's been gone for a while, and his body just couldn't respond like it used to. Tiger Woods, a little bit older now in his career, but his body broke down. Sidney Crosby, physically, concussions a little bit more so, but he's had his. So they're not without their challenges, but they work on it a lot. If you hear them, they work on the mental skills, right? They either have the sports psych or they have a good mentor. Um, I just finished The Last Dance, but Michael Jordan he strategically picked people around him. Again, I'm just going by video, but it seems like they balance them out, from his father early on to um, people who were older than him. Like, you just saw, like, and again, I don't know if you watched The Last Dance, but Michael had older, like, they were like father figures, right, where they can kind of give him feedback, right, and he could give them feedback, but it was more of a conversation. Again, at his time, the sports psych part wasn't as um, it wasn't ingrained in sport like it is now, where people can go to, as athletes, go to someone and just, right, exchange, right, exchange. This is how I'm doing. This is how I'm thinking. This is how I'm feeling. What do you think? And you kind of have that exchange with them, and you come from a place where you don't impact their playing time. You can just kind of hear them and then work with them and allow them to be able to implement some of these little changes. They're subtle changes, but they work on it. Elite athletes work on mental skills a lot. So we just see them on TV and we celebrate them in the Olympics, but those individuals work on the mental skills so much.
Peter, transitioning to headset sports. So, as a founding member, how did the idea develop, and what are your primary responsibilities as director of product development?
Yeah, it really feels. I like to more just the observation and consumption of like art, like music and movies, and I really like stories and documentaries about when people think that it's an overnight success, where it's taken so much time. And I've been at this for such a long time. It's been years, from the idea to putting the concept down, articulating, bring people in, creating a product, testing it, and now being able to have this product and system that people consume. It's been a long time. And I have emails because I look back to support, like I'm like, it's been that long, which is cool. It's a journey where we are, and I say we because there's a team that I work with and people that I hold dearly to me that have really helped out with this project and are my team members. Uh, but it's been a long time to where we are right now. So yeah, right from day one, it was kind of the idea that I had, but I couldn't have done it without all the help of the individuals in our group. And there's one person in particular, a colleague and co-founder of Headset, Dr. Jason Galea, and he's a sports psych out in San Diego and high-level hockey coach and athlete at one time as well. And he was really helpful. And we've been a small team, but we brought people in. And I do a little bit more of the product development. And our product is for people to use without an individual. So it is an app. If you want to use our web-based platform, it's a customizable program, but there's no people that you interact with. So you're creating a product that is a service, but they don't have the person. So you're trying to think about thousands of people with never meeting them. So you're just saying like in your head, you're thinking about how would this athlete feel, right? So you gotta get into your old athlete shoes, your coaching shoes, your sports psych shoes, and then you just ask people. I just ask athletes like, does this work? Does this not? We're getting feedback all the time. It's humbling. Like a lot of people are open with feedback, like do this, do that. And it's like, holy, there's a lot, but it's going to make the product better and the system better, and it's going to make us better. So yeah, it's more product development, but yeah, it's been my baby from the start. So I wear, my goodness, it's how many hats? It feels like a lot every single day, but I like the product development. I always have. Right? So for my business career, I've always liked creating stuff for people for them to consume without really knowing who they are. Even though I do the face-to-face work, I still like creating something that people can go away with and consume. So I like that. I still, I'll keep on doing the product development, maybe not at the same rate, but I like doing it.
Peter, what are the 6 steps with headset?
Yeah, you know what? We create these kind of 6 steps, and are really kind of focused on what I do in my office or my practice. Right? Again, it's my philosophy. It's Dr. J's philosophy. So it's not the only way to do it, but it just felt like it's worked in person, and it also feels like it works with people online. So for us, it really is. You got to assess. That's one of the 6, and it comes early on. So you don't know what to work on unless you assess it. It's like going, like we feel, it's like going to a doctor, and that doctor is just randomly pulling stuff out of a jar. Like it's like a genie. Like I think it's like it's to us. It's like it's got to be data driven. So we use assessments that we created or we have access to, and then through this assessment, we're able to see, okay, what areas do you need to work on? Because we all do. Even though you can score really high in our assessment, there's still always areas to work on. So we don't really focus on the scores as much. We try people not to focus on scores. We just want to say, like, we've assessed you. Here's where we think you got to know, where you have to go. And for us, it's a lifelong. So you got to master this skill first, right? Let's say it's confidence. You got to do this first part with confidence, and then you move on to the next one. And then you move on to the next one, right? So you got to have those basic building blocks before you can get to the next one. But first, you have to assess. After you assess, you got to debrief. You got to tell them what's working well and what's not. Often athletes just want to know what to work on. You got to know what you're good at. So if this is what you're doing well, bring it to the arena, bring it to the tennis court, bring it to the mat. You just bring it because that's what you're good at. So you got to know what you're good at, and then you have to be able to know what you need to work on. You can't work on too much because it gets a little bit, it really does. It gets overwhelming. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. Right. And it becomes overwhelming. Right. And I hear athletes, and now with kind of where we are, They want to be able to get back to where they were before COVID-19. Where I tell people like it's a process, right? So you got to just you can't. It's like in baseball trying to hit a grand slam every time. No, like you make contact, get on base, try to move forward on those. Like it's got to be right one that you're able to move on. If there's too much, it does get overwhelming. So we narrow it down and then we skill build. So assess, report it to the individual, give them something to work on, give them the skills to work on it, and then you evaluate again. And to me, that is a career. Like you can do this for the rest of your athletic career. It never changes. Every season is different from the one before. I don't think anyone predicted that we would have this season, right? No one, but it's happening. And come the summertime, the rest of it, or September, it's going to be a new challenge. 2021 is going to be a new challenge. Coronavirus, we might have some medicines to be able to help us out, and we won't worry as much. But something else is going to happen in the sport, right? 100%. So it's going to continue. There will be challenges, but you got to be equipped to be able to take on the challenges. And we think those steps are really important, but it's just one way. It's not everyone has to do it this way, but we think it's a pretty strong kind of process for people to undertake mental skills training.
I can't imagine, Peter, what athletes have gone through during the pandemic because they're trying to train, they're trying to still be in the season, and then this pandemic happens and everything's kind of closed or canceled or whatnot. So I've seen so many videos on Instagram or YouTube of all these athletes training virtually, like based on a screen. There's a trainer, and then they have
Yep.
their teammates beside them visually and through Zoom or whatnot. And I find that the whole concept like very interesting because as an athlete, I was a former athlete. So are you. We're both former goalies, and to feel motivated to train when there's potentially not even games, that must be a hard concept to have.
Yeah, and you have to be open to like kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier. Is one is that there are gonna be some days where you're not right, and just be open to that. Hey, I'm not. You gotta accept it, right? Like I'm not motivated. Like athletes, they just because the schedule is so strict during their season, the schedule keeps them motivated. I gotta be here at 9. I gotta be here at 11. I got class at 1. I got work at 3. I got to talk to coach at 5, and it's pretty well laid out for you. It's been taken away, right? And that part is going to influence your motivation. So if your motivation is low, it's just saying to yourself, man, like today's different than yesterday. I was motivated a little bit more yesterday. Today's different. And then you can at least move forward with it on how to change to become a little bit more motivated, right? And that's important, right? For that person, every little bit helps. So the more that you can keep your motivation up, the more you're going to be able to undertake because you're motivated. But there'll be ups and downs. There are going to be times where your confidence is going to be higher and you're going to go through that skill. It could be on Zoom, it could be on your own. Now you could have a teammate that comes with you or a coach, and there's going to be times where you're more confident, times where maybe you're not. But it's still learning, right? Before COVID and during and then after, you still have to keep track of things, right? What's my thinking? How do I feel? And that you have to do. It's just different now. So I just say to my clients, you got to keep on tracking it, right? Keep on tracking your practices. Track your Zoom calls, right? Still work on your mental skills. Track your mental skills. Use headset. It tracks it for you. If you're not using headset, track it on your own, right? Talk to someone. It could be me. It could be someone else. So acknowledging that things are different, but yet there are still some similarities between it. So you got to make it somewhat right normal, right, to be able to move on. But again, there's going to be those parts that it's going to change, right? And now athletes have to change from Zoom calls to get back onto the field, right, and onto the ice. And now where we're from, athletes are going back on the ice. They're back on the soccer pitch. It's not the same as when it was last year or before the pandemic, but they're back. So it's dealing with all these new pieces, but then that's going to change, right? So I still think these concepts that we're talking about I think they're relevant now, and they're going to be relevant as sport changes.
I completely agree. Peter, with headsets, different types of programs, I guess how are athletes responding to the product of headset?
Yeah, you know what? And I mentioned that we spent some time working on it, and it feels like we've got our first version up to a point where, yeah, like it's a product that is helpful for competitive athletes because one, it's customizable. So no two athletes go through it the same. So you and I would go through it different based on our mental skills needs, right? So that's important, right? It's always on your fingertips. So you can log into or just press a button if you're going through the app. You can have it at any time. And I wish I had this when I played, and that's why uh, myself and Dr. J, who I mentioned, created it in the first place because we needed it. We were college hockey players. We needed it, and we needed it in real time. So now it is in real time, right? Because I hear athletes, well, there's not time. Well, to do it 10, 50 minutes a day, I think there's time, especially now. But when we get back to it, there's always time, right? So we see people in our own mind, and now we got clients who use it that they're on the bus, they're in the arena, they're in their stall, and they're doing headset. Where before they were not doing anything, right? So we feel a sense of accomplishment is that, damn, they're doing something, right? Because they weren't doing anything before. And we hear it, and I hear it all the time. It's 90% mental, it's 80% mental. Then you ask someone as an athlete or coach, how often do you work on the mental skills? And I'm very open and honest, and I have data from Headset that the majority of people do no mental skills training. Because I ask them when they register for Headset, how often do you do it? The number one response is zero. I have thousands of pieces of data just to support zero. Then any other number of 1 day a week, 2 days a week, all the way to 7 days a week. Most athletes do no mental skills training. And to me, that is incredible because the majority of athletes say it's high in regards to percentage 90, 80, 70. I don't hear too many people tell me that it's below 50, right? Maybe they don't feel comfortable telling someone who's in mental skills, and there's other reasons. I know there's people who think it's less than 50, and sometimes I think it's less than 50. But a lot of people, including me, think it's above 50, and sometimes it could be almost 100. So we got to start doing more of it. So that's our mission. Get headset in the hands as many competitive athletes as possible because it's going to help them, right? Because they're not doing it. So if we can make it access to them, just give it in the palm of their hands, right? Give it a customizable feel to it and give it to them based on their needs. I think we're doing something well. And I didn't answer this part to your question, but we're constantly developing. We're going through 2.0. Like that's our conversations now. We're at 1.0, now we're going to 2.0. And that's what we need to do. Make it more user friendly, more content, narrow down the data. We got to figure out how a hockey player is different from a football player, different from a basketball player, different from a combat sport athlete. So we collect all the data, and now we're analyzing all this data to be able to say, hey, males are different than females. Possibly. I don't know yet. Um, this mental skill is one that progresses at a different rate than this other mental skill. We need to know that, right? Because we need to narrow it down to be able to help athletes in the future even more, right? So it's customizable. We need to make it even more customizable. So that's our goal right now. We're getting a lot of feedback, good feedback. We understand where there are some opportunities, and now we have to execute. So it's a cool time at Headset.
If I'm a player before the game and I'm trying to use headset to work on my mental skills training, how does that work?
Well, you would put or your team would put the game into your calendar. So it's just like your calendar for your email and your phone, and then you would put or someone would put on your behalf a game. So it's a game versus San Jose, and then it will be in your calendar. Then it would headset would notify you. Hey, it just sends you through your phone or through your email and just says you have a game coming up against San Jose. It's time to get ready. And then you go into headset, and then it shows you how to get ready. And then you are able to go through your pre-competition routine And then you kind of go through the steps, and you go through the steps like how you need to feel to get ready. And then you say like, I need to do this, done. Need to do this, done. Need to do this, right? And everyone's different in the recipe, but one is you have to do it. And that's a big part because a lot of athletes have no routine, and they're there 2 hours before or an hour and a half before. And then when you ask them, what do you do for an hour and a half? And they're like, I don't know, right? For hockey players, they tape their stick. I go, how long does it take you? 5 minutes. What are you doing for the other hour and a half? I don't know. Well, here we go. Here's what you're going to do, right? You're going to do these things to be able to get yourself ready. And I think that would be, and hearing from athletes is a helpful thing for them to be able to understand how to get ready for games.
It seems like there's a lot more structure, Peter, using the app and headset rather than the old kind of style of the process that players might have.
Yeah, one is that they don't even know how. Like we're showing them the skill. They know about the concept of having a routine. And I had a conversation with someone the other day that, oh, it was on a podcast, and I was interviewing a goalie coach that was in the NHL, and he still tells the young athletes that are emerging, that are going to the NHL or on the path to hopefully getting there, and they talk about superstitions. And we had a conversation about, that's a superstition. That's not a routine, right? Your favorite socks, that's not a routine, right? You have to be very, very systematic on what that routine is, because again, everyone goes through it differently. How you get prepared to be at your best and ready is different for me. Some people love hearing music, other people don't. Some people like to talk to other teammates. Some people are just on their own. And you have to respect it in regards to that routine. But as an individual athlete, you need to know exactly what that is. And it takes time, right? It takes time to develop that. And hopefully Headset will be able to kind of give that to others in regards to starting it, but also evolving that routine over time.
Is there any success story with athletes or teams thus far with using headset?
Yeah, you know what? There are. And there's the majority of sports, we've had people who have registered, done it for a period of time. Usually it's for a competitive season overall, and then they'll take a little bit of time off and then come back for the next season. But we just hear from athletes, coaches, that there's more consistency. And when I hear that from athletes and coaches, that to me is what mental skills training brings forward. That's the opportunity. I tell people I can't guarantee you a contract in the pros, a scholarship to a university, but what I can is consistency, and that's important, because what mental skills and through headset does is it's not the roller coaster, it's not the huge highs, but those lows. Right? It's consistent. Will there be highs? Yes, there will. Will there be lows? Yes, there will. But it's almost kind of like a ripple rather than the big waves. And if you can remember back to your playing days, and for me to my playing days, we don't like the roller coaster, right? We like the roller coaster where we're like at the high, but then we're coming crashing down. And to get back up that hill is very difficult, right? So if we can just be consistent, and that's what I listen to, that I'm consistent, I'm able to implement. I'm sure I'm hearing from them that I'm able to do this in real time, and I'm getting this benefit. And also from a team perspective, like for the teams that we worked with, is primarily North American, that we're hearing that it becomes like a cultural piece, right? That they're talking the same language. They can share about what they're working on if they feel comfortable. So these concepts are not just held within, that they're able to talk, and coaches can talk to players, players can talk to coaches. It really is a team approach, because as a team, you want to be confident. You want to be resilient. I haven't heard a team out loud say, nah, not this season. We don't want to be resilient. We want to fail, and we want to be stuck in failure. No, it's the opposite. Like, we want to come back quickly. We want to learn. We want to be ready to perform. We need to be ready before we get out, right? So those concepts as an individual and team, right? We're finding that there is benefit because it's helping them to take on the challenges, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool when someone emails you or gets a hold of you somehow and says thank you, and that's a pretty nice place. It's a nice place to be. It really is.
Peter, it drove me crazy when I was a goalie that one night I would be great. I would get a shutout, stop 30 of 30, all good. Let's say a couple weeks later, I had a horrible night, got pulled. That was just a bad game. So the consistency during my playing days was very frustrating to me. And it seems like headset, as you said, allows the consistency.
Yeah, and it really is being able to like understand what makes you successful, and then try to understand how do you come back from failure. And again, as two former goalies, yeah, I've been there too. Like it's tough, right? But how do you come back? Like those are great. We like the comeback story, but we don't really hear about that person, what they've done after they got pulled to be better the next game, right? And for a lot of players and goalies, you don't always play every game. So then, how do you come back from not playing after a while, right? Because sometimes you're not the starter, right? But you can go across sports. A pitcher doesn't pitch every game, right? He or she will have days off. How do you get ready? And then if you don't pitch that one day well, then you have to sit with it for a while. A mixed martial artist might not perform well. He or she might get knocked out. There might be 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months until they perform. How do you come back? Right. And that's important because you want to be able to come back quicker. Right. And you might not perform up to that one level that we have as an ideal, but you're able to perform better and you feel better about it. So it really is about that kind of mindset because it's not without its challenges, and that's what we appreciate about sport as viewers, as support people, but as athletes. Like it's the part of being able to be triumphant and undertaking your potential, but there's times where you don't. But that's the part about coming back. We love those comeback stories, but comebacks are in preparation is work. So I tell people that it's work. It really is. Even on an app, it's work. It's not games. Like we offer some like brain games, and those are helpful. But it's work to increase your confidence. It's work to increase your resilience. So we kind of put that as a major theme throughout headset. But once you put in the work, it will become something that you can rely on.
Especially for injuries, Peter, because it doesn't even matter if you're a professional athlete or just an athlete going to the gym or whatnot. As those, if you have an injury, you have to be really mentally prepared to overcome that injury, not just physically, to get back to the shape that you were once in.
Yeah, and there's pressure to come back, right? So it's being able to work on, not to kind of go off on and I could, because I really appreciate the people who come back from injuries well, because it's work, right? And there's people who are come back from injury quicker, right? And they do it better, right, in regards to their process. And there is that mental skills part as well as the physical part, but those are a lot of times there's a marriage between those. So as you're recouping
Thank
physically, you
you.
got to also help that recuperation physically with the mental side, and vice versa, because there are going to be times where your injury, there is pain there still, or you're still trying to kind of come back physically, and then their mental skills are impacted, right? So I do for injury, and you hear a lot about concussions, but all these other injuries where you have to do it well. There's a recipe for coming back from injury. Yeah, and we hope that headset could be something that people can use to be able to get back to them performing at their highest level in a shorter amount of time.
Off camera, Peter, we talked about the podcast. And as you know, I'm a huge fan. I've listened to every episode so far. I've caught up somehow in my free time. So
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for
uh,
catching up. Just listening. That's cool.
no, it's actually it's very very good. And what can you tell us about some of the content that Headset is putting out right now? If it's a podcast or what's upcoming for Headset?
Yeah, we're trying to find and interview and talk with athletes, coaches across sports. right? So we're still keeping a broad perspective because we still think we, for our clientele and people interested in the concept, they just have to get immersed in like, what is it? And hearing athletes, and they're high level athletes um, that we're talking to just to understand how they do it, right? And to hear that there are challenges, kind of like our conversation, like they all talk about challenges, right? NHL players talk about challenges. Pro rugby people talk about challenges. And then there are times where we'll have coaches because we want athletes to hear what the coach is thinking. I think that's important, right? And a lot of times I'll talk to athletes and say, "Did you talk to coach?" "No, I don't feel comfortable." Right? And there are reasons why athletes don't feel comfortable, but it's nice to hear the coach's perspective. And there are trends, like there's so it's broad, but we're going to narrow it down because we're hearing trends from athletes and coaches, right? There's just coaches are saying the same thing across sports, what they're looking for in athletes. If an athlete knows what they're looking for, work on that. Be an open-minded athlete. Every coach we've interviewed say open-mindedness. If you're not open-minded, you got to work on being open-minded and taking feedback, right? Coaches like hard work. If you're not working hard, then you got to see who you think works hard and then do what they do. Like that's what coaches are observing that all the time. So along with the way we're looking at things broadly, we're looking at different perspectives, but we're thinking now about maybe narrowing things down a little bit and trying to focus a little bit more on our pillars. We call them pillars, our major focal or focus areas for headset. So that's constantly emerging. I appreciate the feedback and you listening and other people listening, but it really is giving back to athletes. If we can give them something that they can use in their time of need as they perform, we've done a good job in this. So, but we're constantly trying to evolve it, and we're trying to stay open minded to people's feedback as well.
Listeners or viewers watching, we had a conversation at a Starbucks, I think it was years ago, about this idea of headset and how it then was a plan and now it's implemented into that plan. And it's really cool and fascinating for me to see the kind of the evolution of headset among the past couple of years because it's grown a lot and obviously the client lists have grown, which is the most important.
Yeah, and it has. So it's really to be a part of things since the very beginning. It's an idea that you think might have some merit, but you don't know, and it took a long time. And yeah, we have a few people within headset that push me and they ask questions because they're trying to know the business. Like, what are your thoughts and how has it evolved? And I was very open in regards to, and still am, that it took me a long time to be able to know if it worked or not. And I didn't know if there were athletes who I knew that were doing it and they just wanted to give me good things, or they were colleagues and they just wanted to give me information. I had students that I've taught that I just said, give me some feedback on this. And then they give me feedback and I would go, well, maybe it's just my student. They don't want to give me news that I'm maybe not wanting to hear. Um, but we've heard from a lot of people over the past few years, and they haven't always been about this is great, right? They've been about like this is good. You can improve it, and I like that because it's not all rainbows, right? It's not, right? So, and I always appreciate people give me feedback, right? And if it's good feedback, I'm like, tell me more. Like, what made it so good? Like, what was your experience? Like, and I always tell, like, ask them, and I won't pressure them, but like, what can I improve on? Like, what could we do differently? And now I have version 2.0 that I can go to them. Like, we're building it again. Like, what can I do differently? Um, but it took a while to believe in it, and it's interesting. That's even my own mental skills, and I tell people all the time, and give my own feedback to my clients and talk about confidence all the time, but I struggled even with a product that I didn't know if it was good, right? And sometimes I still don't, right? So you just try to take a healthy perspective of, yeah, like you have your doubts. I still have my doubts. We want to grow a company, and I'm open to it. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable at times. I'm scared to fail. but again, it's just trying to work with all those, and we're all performers, right? We're still performers. You and I are performing right now. Like I'll be lying to you if I didn't want to give a good interview. I'm pretty sure you went into this saying I want to get something out of this, a good interview from him, and be good at what I'm bringing forward. So yeah, it's been a long road, but we're looking, yeah, the future. We're really optimistic, and we're looking forward to it, which is that's what you want to see. Like you want to see where the future might evolve and be a part of it. So I'm pretty excited, and COVID has helped me get even more excited because I've been able to put more time into it and just talk about it. So man, I like talking about it more than ever before. So I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to just talk about it. So
Peter, it's my pleasure. Thank you for doing this. It means the world to me. It was a great conversation about headset, about insights. I would encourage any athlete to join headset because I just think when I was a player, when I was a goalie, I wish I had this platform. I think athletes should take advantage of this definitely. So thank you, Peter. Thank you for this.
you're
This was great.
welcome. You're welcome, and thanks for having me on. And I love the work that you're doing, and we've had conversations, as mentioned, outside of a formal recorded. So seeing your development, where you're going with this, and I'm excited. I like tech and sport. To me is cool, even though I'm one to be not as familiar. I've kind of developed. I think that there's so much opportunity to just give back to people through our different means right now. So my friend, keep on doing what you're doing. Man, this is a great opportunity for people to share their stories, but there are people who are going to learn from you, and that's a cool thing. So keep on doing what you're doing, and if you ever want to do it again, you know where I am. So I'll come back on, no problem at all.
It's a deal. I'll follow up with you about that. But what?
Awesome.
That's Peter.